All right, so describe what a correlation is. Detail the benefits of a correlational research. There you go. There you go. Give you some time to work on the bell ringer. No vocab for today. The game Friday, huh? You guys woke them up. Christian, how many touchdowns do you have? One. Connor, you have any touchdowns? Two. You spiking in the end zone? That'd be cool if you did. Are you, Christian, you spikes? Like the end zone fan. All right, so correlation. What is a correlation? What is it? What do we got? What do we got? No, what's a correlation? What's up? Okay, like it. Okay, two variables, right? And you're seeing the relationship, right? Okay, good, good, good. So we'll talk about correlations more on, I think, Thursday. Okay. So with a correlational chart graph, we will show those as well to see the relationship between two variables. All right. I think I gave the example of time spent studying, time spent doing homework, and test grades. And obviously, that's going to be a positive correlation. You'll see the advancement with those, and you can see the relationship between those two variables. And there could be no correlation where there's no relationship, okay, between those two variables, either positive or negative. And there could be negative correlations where the variables maybe aren't really there isn't a strong relationship between those two variables when you're looking at them to study exact data. All right, so we'll talk about that more on, I think, Thursday. All right, so is there any questions on a correlational research, right? So again, we're just looking at two variables. We're seeing a relationship between the two. If it's positive, if it's negative, or if there's no correlation. Okay. So real quick, I just want to talk about ethics in research today and kind of be a review for statistics with you guys as we're collecting data and as we're going through data, all right, for tomorrow. It's pretty easy, pretty simple, so I won't spend too much time on it. It's really just finding the mean, median, mode, you name it, and how we graph that sort of stuff. All right, so ethics in research. I'll get you guys working on your assignment today, and I'll talk about this experiment research project. So ethics in research, pretty self-explanatory. All right, so there's guidelines that research has to follow when presenting this data or making sure that your participants in a study are not harmed. So the experiments that you're going to be reading about today, a lot of these experiments cross ethical guidelines, and there's a reason why we study them, right? There's a reason why we talk about them today, to make sure that they never happen again, and that we can use them as we can use this research, these experiments, as a guideline, as a base of study, a sample, if you will, to talk about and make sure that we never cross these boundaries again. So one unique example you'll read about, an experiment, the Stanford Prison Experiment, is that they literally had participants join together, and some of them were chosen. Some of these participants, these college students, were chosen as prison guards, and some were chosen as prisoners. Okay, and with this study, there was no independent variable. There was no real basis of the study at all. It really didn't follow the scientific method whatsoever. But at the same time, the results that were found from this study, from this experiment, were very beneficial to show the power struggle amongst, the power orientation, the power, I guess to say, grasp of these prison guards to these prisoners. And we all know these prisoners were very mistreated, okay? Mistreated to a point that they had to do these weird things, which you guys will read about. And if we have some time, we'll watch the movie in here. We'll see though. And how this was one of these experiments that we need to look back to at all times and make sure that we never repeat this type of thing ever again. And there's many other ones, the Little Albert experiment as well, mistreatment of an infant, a toddler, and how they're seeing how they could maybe scare this toddler with rats. Okay, so they introduce a rat or a mouse, and they make loud banging noise to a point where the baby would have a fear of the rat, just seeing it, of the mouse, just seeing it. And the baby would associate the rat and the mouse with loud banging noise to a point where this could cause some issues moving forward, right? So with the underlying intentions that could spur from this, right? Some of the issues that this participant from the experiment might encounter or endure for the rest of their life. I'm sure that baby feared rats for the rest of their life, I'm sure. Okay, but there's many other ones that you'll do research and you'll find a little bit about the experiment and how it maybe crossed ethical guidelines. So APA, okay, you'll cite an APA format is this idea where this association was created to make sure these ethical guidelines were followed, and obviously with citations, okay? So with the famous psychological experiment, I'm going to talk about this right now, might as well. I'll put the assignment up towards the end of class, but you're just going to research an experiment in psychology that was famous and that we can look back at, and we can maybe see how it crossed ethical guidelines. So with that, you're going to find topic of research, obviously, is just going to be the experiment itself. Right? You're going to talk a little bit, a brief explanation, a summary of what the experiment was trying to find. So method of research, label the independent variable, it's a dependent variable. And we talked about that already, right? Independent variables that change, okay, that variable that could be changed or altered by the experimenter to see what the dependent variable could be. So with a measured outcome. Operational definitions for both the independent and dependent variables to make sure you explain what these variables are, okay? Some of them, there might not be any. Like I mentioned with the Stanford Prison experiment, there might not be an independent variable, something that's altered or changed. Data collected. So what were the results? Okay. And then conclusions, why is it important for the field of study? Okay, why is it important for the field of psychology? Okay, so again, a lot of these experiments are going to cross ethical guidelines that are interesting, and we look at these experiments and obviously we reflect them so that we don't ever cross these boundaries ever again. So here's some important psychological studies. Again, I'll attach this to Canvas so you can look at these and maybe find the summary of these experiments to maybe dive a little bit more in detail with them. And some of them aren't really terrible. Some of them aren't going to be anything that really crosses ethical guidelines, but some of them do. And you could choose from this list here, this list of 26 different types of psychological experiments. And I want to make sure that everybody's not doing the same one. So if you're working with a partner, that's fine. If not, whenever you find an experiment, just let me know which one you're going to choose, which one you're going to pick. And we'll move on from there. All right, so right now, I'd like you guys to work on this ethical guideline sheet here in psychology. And this is going to really kickstart you into your experiment, your research experiment project as we're looking into these ethical guidelines. And maybe it'll spur you to choose one of these experiments you're going to read about. All right, so here it is, ethics in research. You're just going to read this article here. Okay, just click on the link, send you right to the article. All right, and then just answer the questions that are attached. So here's the article on the ethics in research. Again, talks about these experiments that are listed for the experiment project presentation. So if you find one that's interesting, let me know which one you'd like to research then. And here are the questions attached. I believe so, yeah. So you're gonna have to look at it, read the article that's attached to the assignment, and the questions are obviously attached to it as well. Okay, so there you go. You can use the time, rest of the time in class to complete that activity. I'm going to attach the experiment project presentation. So if you read about one in this ethics and research that you find interesting, let me know if you want to dive a little bit more in detail with it for your project presentations. I'm thinking presentations for Friday. I think that would be good. And I'll give you enough time to work on these presentations. Remember, APA citation, APA format. Okay, cite your sources. I just don't want to see a link. And a reminder, I'm going to grade too on presentation skills. So don't read straight from the slide. I try to elaborate detail. I want to see your understanding of the content itself. So make sure you're prepared for the presentation. Raven.
Taking the SAT tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Okay. We're just gonna go over data. Okay, talk about ways of collecting data. It's just really the average, the mode, mean, median mode. And we'll talk about different types of graphs of representing and showing the data, concluding it. So again, nothing crazy, just watch the video lesson, be good. Be good. All right, so that's all I have. You said you guys can work on that the rest of the period. Shouldn't take you too